Hi guys. Today I'm just gonna talk about what I learned today. I'm just gonna like explain what I learned in this week. Um, I'm trying to make some kind of authentication system, because we're trying to make some kind of like web service, and that requires authentication system. So our great server engineer made API for me. So I'm trying to implement it. And the first thing what I learned was like handling those kind of API calls is really hard for me. Example, like there's there's a lot of strategy for handling this kind of authentication system. You can use some kind of state. You can use you can just call API in just inside use effect and store in just a state. So you're basically storing access token in the state global state or whatever, and based on that, based on this value is true, you can go user can go to protect route. If it's false, you just have to go to some kind of login page, and that's pretty fine. But I don't want to use that kind of strategy. The first thing is heavily rely on the client, and also there's gonna be a big issue when you big issue on the security. In third, and it's really easy to implement. So I don't wanna like keep it in this kind of easy thing. So what I did was I used worker thread. So basically, a worker thread is just it's just a thread. It's just the but so here if it, so this kind of main thread here. Sorry, hold on. Main thread. So this part is the main thread, and this part is worker thread. Basically, if I want some kind of API calls with the access token, I send the message that I want the access token. It's just like handshake of it. If you have experience of networking, you're able to understand the handshake. So you just like handshake. I put sync, sync, yeah, sync, and your act sync, act, and those kind of thing. And so this thing it could means that I want some kind of request, and worker thread goes to API calls in here, and there will be server this part, and then server is gonna go here, and server retrieve the access token, and I store the access token in memory in worker thread, and also I send the value of, of to the main thread. So what the main thread does is when you receive the access token, it doesn't really store in the state. We just check is access token is very valid, like it is very true or not. If there's access token, if there's string value, of course the access token is pretty fine. But if it is kind of no value, we gotta go to redirect. So after receiving it, we just store. So I'm just gonna put here like global storage, which is local storage here. And when it gets the access token, we store the state if it is true or not. So it's gonna be is authenticated. So we're just gonna uh, like store this value on the local storage, and based on this local storage, we define our protect route based on this value. Yeah, that's very kind of simple. So after that, we go here. So, and so after that, when it goes to the local storage, it's authenticated by true, and everything's done. We also put this as a token, but inside our API calls header, and that's really simple process. If it's project launch, we can do it. And also when we trying to do some kind of like API calls with the server in a worker thread, if there's something wrong with the APIs, like example some kind of access token is gonna be not valid. If it's not valid, so in the main thread, we commonly do the API calls with the main thread that needs access token because we already get the access token from the worker thread. But if the API call from the server inside main thread is clearly wrong because, of course, access token expiration date is not infinite. So that could be 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, there should be error. When it receives some kind of error, we do same things as the first time. We just because we already make some kind of abstraction on getting the access token using worker thread. So this is actually our custom function. Actually, custom hook is going to be more accurate. So we just reuse it if there's some kind of errors on it, and that's going to be simple. And that's going to be multiple. And also there, yeah, sorry. I think that's kind of really the process of how I handle this kind of authentication system. But the question is, how do we handle some kind of like uh, server URL? And also, how do we handle those kind of environment? Actually, we really use the runtime environment config. So at the root of the file, I made emb config that forges the runtime emb. I just already declared the runtime emb on the emb config, and based on that, I put uh, like all of the dependencies that use heavily related to the environment. I use this kind of emb config. So when it's the development mode, when our branch is kind of like development, we're gonna use deb our alpha API rather than live production API. So there's kind of really big difference of it. So there's kind of really process of how I handled this kind of authentication system. Or also, I'm just gonna talk about this more. So the interesting about the Jotai thing is there's such a thing as storage. It's just storing as a local storage, but with a state of it. And moreover, you can fetch this local storage with a state, but also really function. Because normally state you only have to use state inside the component, but you can also fetch the value with using just a function. There's and that's really interesting part. And another interesting part is that the there's kind of like toggle storage in Jotai. That means that like that's really for the what do you call that, the dark mode. When you're trying to like using dark mode, because we typically use dark mode for local storage for installing the dark mode variable, but that really requires some kind of toggle thing. And and also, and based on this, we utilize this kind of toggle as a refetch. What do you mean by that? Because I just talk about if there's something API error, we have to refetch it. But rather than making a like every calling some kind of like every putting some kind of boilerplate, we use Atom like storage toggle Jotai, and when there's error, we just toggle it. So every load is going to be heavily rely on the Jotai, but also on a specific thing of it. So that's kind of really big progress that I made. So there's so much engineering thing, but I think this one is really nice now. So, so this is what I learned today. See you next time. Bye bye.